Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Soulful Speaking Show. I'm so excited about the experience that you're going to have today and my guest. My guest is Evelyne Brink. She is a voice and visibility coach for high impact leaders, helping brilliant people sound as powerful as they are. But she's not your typical speaking coach. As a former #1 Madonna impersonator, TEDx speaker, and one-woman show creator, Evelyne brings a rare blend of performance, expertise, and leadership insight. And today we decided to improvise together because my story since starting this podcast has been coming into another notch of alignment and clarity and soulful focus. And I could use a little help. It's really helpful to have someone else ask questions and hold a mirror up. And Evelyne came into my world and offered to do that. So for season 2, it's still not your granddaddy's speaking show. And I'm leaning more into wild, untamed, and radiant as the season 2 focus. So we're going to play together and she's going to help me evoke the more wild, untamed, radiant part of my own story so that this is my way of going first in season 2. I'm ready when you are, Evelyne.
Okay, here we go. Hip, hip, hooray. I thank you so much, first of all, for having me here and for this wicked intro. I feel very good about myself now. We are done. Hi, everyone.
Bye.
This was great. And I can't wait to dive in. So that's what we're going to do. Because one of the things that always annoys me with podcasts is when people faff around in the beginning. Let's dive right in.
Yeah.
I would love to know one thing that you haven't shared with your audience before.
Oof. I've shared so much with my audience
I'm
before.
sure you have, but the thing that you haven't dared to say yet.
I don't know if I've said this. Well, part of the reason we're here is that there's a certain amount of good girl that's still there for me at times, particularly in how I run my business. And I notice it a lot, like looking for, even though I'm like, I'm a rebel, I'm one of a kind, I'm creating the business that only I can create, I will get sucked into like looking for the landmine that's going to go off and like, where can I step and what choice can I make that sort of allows me to do what I want to do. But that isn't always 150% driven by my intuition and my gut and aliveness and inner knowing, which is, I don't know if I've said it. So I feel like sometimes it's obvious. And I tend to attempt to share things that are happening. And yet I know, like, when you're sitting here and you're holding the space for other people, you're not always saying like, hey, even I still might have thin masks that creep up from time to time.
So Lauri Smith's title of her new book, Confessions of a Wild Woman, will be out next season. Number 1 is, even though you are a rebel and a wild woman, you are still also a good girl. Thank you for that. Thank you for your honesty.
Yeah.
I can relate. I totally relate to that. It's, I think, very human. And what you described actually sounded to me a little more like anxiety than really just a good girl pattern. What do you see?
Yeah. I feel like it is. And like, when I'm in that, like, what step is right? What step will not cause something to go wrong? Then I think that's when I would be like, well, if I just do the good girl thing, I know that's worked before, except it hasn't actually. Like,
Okay.
it worked when I was young. And in building my own business and honoring my purpose in the world, I will say this from time to time, like there are people who can like do what other people are telling them they should do and have a certain amount of success. I've been in business for 17 years now. It actually has never really worked for me. When there's a traditional way to do it, when I try to cookie cutter it and take it, it's like, why do I keep trying? Because it actually fails when I do it. So why?
Why? I
Why?
relate. Dang it. I
Yeah.
relate. And what I noticed when you started talking about that is that the term good girl
Mm-hmm.
feels like I know exactly what you're talking about, sister. And
Mm-hmm.
do I really though? And my
Mm-hmm.
suspicion is that maybe our audience might have a similar thing, that they play by the good girl, but do we actually know what that is? So, Lauri, what does that mean in your world, good girl?
Yeah. I'll even share a bit about where it probably comes from in my case.
Yes, please.
Um, I was like the good sheep in a family of black sheep. So I was a misfit and and that's the direction that I went. So my
You have to
parents
explain this. Yeah.
I have to explain it.
I'm like, what?
Yeah. My parents met in Alcoholics Anonymous
Oh, yeah.
and had me. And a lot of our family members have issues with drugs and alcohol. We have an alarmingly high success rate of people getting sober, maintaining their sobriety. And and that wasn't always the case when I was younger. So I remember like times when the phone would ring in the middle of the night and my dad would be going to get somebody out of jail.
Wow.
Meanwhile, I was the straight A student. I actually think I thought at the time it was a left brain intellect, but I had learned like 20 years ago it wasn't. It's my intuition and my right brain and like the way I hear the world. Important words almost have like an oral equivalent of a neon sign. So I could just hear what was on the test. I figured that out when I was a grad student helping others studying for the test. Because the professors would get up and they would talk and everyone would be very confused. And I would have these notes before they even made up the test. And then I would see their test. And everything that I wrote down was what they then created as a test.
Oh, that's fascinating. So there's a superpower.
Yeah, which of
Mm.
course, you don't know those are your superpowers when you're like getting straight A's at 11 years old.
Mm-mm.
So I remember like working in my living room with the TV on in the background, getting the straight A's, not needing to ask anyone for help with the homework. And that was my lane. I even have this thing that I put in a one woman show that I did that I'm not sure if it was an actual memory or just a creative moment of being in a crib and crying and being alone and then stopping and like being silent and then people coming to me. I don't know if it's an actual memory or if it was like I just had this image that feels a bit like, well, that's how I got attention. I didn't get attention by temper tantrums. I didn't get attention by crying. And I had an impression until this started coming to me in my 30s that like I always wanted to be the one who was all pulled together, okay, independent, not too wild or weird or out there, and kind of named that the good girl because everyone else was the black sheep. I also think some of this, it's like you interact with the world and certain things work. And when I was good, even as an adult, as a woman in our world, good, calm, measured, intelligent, not too emotional, not too this, that, yada, yada, yada. It worked. Things felt stable. But stable is not really what I'm here for now.
Mm.
I don't know if there's anything else that would be in Good Girl, but I know that some of those, like, don't rock the boat, stay in a pretty thin lane kind of feelings
Mhm.
And all of the like, don't be too wild, too weird, too loud, too raw, too authentic, too anything are the like opposite of good girl.
Interesting. So your good girl is definitely slightly different from where I would have come in with good girl. So thank you so much for sharing that. That's fascinating.
Well, I'm curious, like, what
Yeah.
would yours have been? Because I feel like there's a spectrum where we all get to be different. And
Mhm.
also, there are some themes that might be really helpful for me
Yeah,
and for our listeners, too.
sure. Um, and before I do that, I want to summarize a little of what you've said, because your good girl came. Because I was thinking whilst you were talking, I'm like, but she's a rebel now. She talks about good girl, and then I thought, no, but your good girl is a rebellion in itself.
Mm,
Your good girl is a rebellion against the normative of what you call bad, the dysfunctional. And
mm,
so part of your good girl is the deep desire to be healthy and functional. And that desire might be more compulsive than you want it to be, or more kind of like tight than you want it to
yeah,
be. But it's actually an opposite reaction of where you came from, which I thought that's fascinating to me.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
think,
Yeah, I totally asked you a question. And then I'm like, I have also had times in my life and believe that it's part of our world here in the American education system is that everybody's shooting all over you.
mhm,
So they're telling you what you should be, and you either comply with that, which is what I did when I was younger, or you rebel against that. You break the rules. And in the like unformed brain of a child and a teenager, neither one of those, they're both blind. I'm either blindly following or blindly going, I'm not going to do that. Why? Because you said so.
yeah.
And when we get older, we probably move through a good girl to a rule breaker or bounce back and forth feeling very confused, which some of my clients have said.
Hmm.
And then there's this wild woman or sovereign creator, intuitive one, where it's like what the world is saying you should or should not do is irrelevant.
Hmm. Yeah. Fascinating. And I guess when we go into the conceptual and archetypal, there is an opportunity to grasp something that might not be as accessible as to us. With like, if
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a wild woman, to go like, oh, there's a wild woman, there's a queen, there's a sovereign creator. Wow, I kind of get the feeling for it. And there's a danger to think it's something that it completely is different. So what you just called wild woman, sometimes I think about wild woman as the one that's really unhinged, wild as well. So
Mm.
that's also, so what's wild, what's good. So this is fascinating.
Yeah.
I'll answer your question. So we have that uh, contrast, or not contrast. For me, good girl is the rule, the conformist, the rule follower. Is you do what mummy says, you do what daddy says. Good
Mm-hmm.
girl is what society expects of a girl and a woman. You're a good girl. And it's this, it is so non conducive to being an individual and being free to label people, and especially children, as good and bad. I have often tried to explain to teachers or anyone, please don't call my child good or bad. They're not a dog. You know, like,
Mm-hmm.
you say good dog, bad boy, good girl. You
Yeah.
can't you can't judge them like that. And you can't judge the entire character on one behavior. You've passed the test, therefore you're a good person. What the heck? So it just doesn't even make sense. But there is an
Yeah.
idea, and it's a beautiful controlling mechanism that we just, like you said, should on people and give these norms. So for me, the good girl is the one that's compliant with norms and what your parents say. So the first line of forming,
Yeah.
you do what's expected of you. That
Yeah.
is good. And then
Yeah.
as a girl, that means you're more you're seen but not heard. You're pretty. You
Mm-hmm.
smile nicely. You look nice. You want to marry someone. You might want to be chosen. You do something that you want to be stable. You don't want to be a hassle. You want to be low maintenance. And don't be complicated. Don't be too emotional. Don't be too much. Just be basically the B side of the record.
Yeah.
You're the supplement to a man, really. That's a good girl.
Yeah.
Someone who's
Yeah.
easy to be around. That's good.
Yeah. And those were, that was all definitely in there too. I think there was a lot of me, and even like before it was said, anticipating what is this thing that's like there in our society. And if you're intuitive and sensitive, you can start to be looking for like where's the response where I get the pat on the head before anybody has even used the word good, because you're ultra hyper sensitive.
And in a case like yours, from what I'm hearing, you're not safe. I also grew up with an alcoholic, step parent, step parent, and I learned in Al-Anon that was the beginning of my personal development journey. What did I learn? Well, that we're hyper vigilant as relatives of alcoholics. So you're not in a safe environment when people are drinking around you. So it wouldn't surprise me that you've really had to look out and almost calculate what could be happening to then respond to it in advance.
Yeah. The weird thing is that my parents didn't, like, they met in AA and had me and were sober the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Other siblings were drinking, but it wasn't allowed in our household. That doesn't mean it was never around, because if you come in a certain level of drunk around an alcoholic, they're going to smell it. Like years later, one of my sisters, once she was sober, told me, like, you could have taken one sip of alcohol and I would smell it on your breath, like one sip. And just
Wow.
because of the craving that she had, she would smell it. If somebody comes in on another substance, it's not always as obvious.
Mm-hmm.
And there may have been some of that creating the feeling of the, like, I'm being hyper vigilant because there's like mood swings going on with siblings because of what they might be on.
Yeah. And there's a reason people fall into alcoholism in the first place, and they might have not all been healed up. So that's a challenging environment. And so for me, it's fascinating to hear how you have taken the good girl principle and the conforming, and being the expected and the unexpected at the same time in that
Mm-hmm.
context. Um, for me, it's always been this. I don't know that it just didn't really apply to me. I'm a very free spirit,
Mm-hmm.
and naturally, I've always been good, but also quite loud.
Mm-hmm.
And I was probably lucky that most people let me be, but then there were plenty of people who didn't. So there's always a confusion around, is it okay to be me or not, or what? Because one
Mm-hmm.
minute there's a lot of people celebrating my freedom and my intelligence and my questions and all that and my talent and recognizing it. People said, "Oh, you're going to be an actress," from when I was very young. And then on the other hand, it's like, "Shh,
Mm-hmm.
we can hear you even when you're whispering." I'm like,
Yeah.
because I also always have something to say, often have a joke, really see the funniest. And so that's then clamped down, which is, so we all run into our conflicts and then
Yeah.
decide how we play with it, whether we want to be, well, coasting with it or starting a riot. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And that, I feel like I was not, I'm way louder now.
Mhm.
I think because of the sensitivity, I had kind of like a shy, sensitive, slow to jump into things
Hmm.
until I got, except I also had this fire of like, I'm here to do something. And I found theater not from people saying, oh my God, you're totally going to be an actress.
Yeah.
But it was like I was called there
Mm.
and felt at home in the theater because it was an acceptable place to like tap into all of me and let it out. And
Wow.
I remember one key moment in my life was, I went away to school. I consciously chose a school that was uh, a 7-8 hour drive away from my parents because I was like, it was like an intuitive, I think I need to go find me. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's time to grow up. And if I live and go to one of the colleges that's like I can come home to do my laundry every weekend, I'm not sure that's going to happen.
Yeah, I agree. I relate. Yeah.
So I went to UC Davis up I-5 and was auditioning for the Crucible. And I've got this fire inside of me, and I really wanted the role of Abigail. And I was a little overweight. I wore baggy t-shirts all the time. I had brown, like mousy mid-brown hair with some highlights.
Mm-hmm.
And I got called back for Mary Warren. And I really wanted to be cast. So I was trying to figure out how to play this meek, mousy character. And like trying to play meek, just in case you're out there and you're an actor, is not the way to go. It's that the person has a block and they're trying to speak up, and every single word out of their mouth is like the most courageous thing ever. So I could play her very well now. And the stage directions said I was doing a good job and I was sitting. And then the stage direction said, she stands. And when Lauri, with this fire inside, who really wanted to play Abigail, but was trying to be like good girl, quiet, when I stood up, something took over and Abigail came out in the way that I said the next line. And the director, I'd been hearing about these callbacks with all the red-haired, blonde-haired actresses that were getting called in for Abigail, hours and hours long, where she was trying to pull Abigail out of them. So I stand up. It's like an Abigail flash comes out and she stops it. And I'm going, oh,
Oh no.
fuck.
No, messed it up.
And she said, okay, I want you to go look at both Abigail and Mary Warren. And I want you to come back on Saturday. And I want you to understand that they are complete opposites. And I was like, I know that. So I went away. I came back. There was one Abigail scene, I think, and one Mary Warren scene. And she said, which would you like to do first? And I said, I'd like to do the Abigail first. I do the Abigail scene and I turn around, and the cartoon version of what happened would be that her jaw was like disconnected from her face and on the floor, because this very innocent looking, mousy brown haired girl just channeled what she'd been trying to get out of all these other people. So she handed me another scene, no direction. She's just handing me scene after scene after scene, and then says, lets me do the Mary Warren somewhere in the middle, and then says, thank you very much. And like on the way out, I remember in a very Mary Warren type energy telling the assistant director, if there's a question, I would love to play Abigail. And she looked at me and went, oh, I don't think there's a question. And then like you're waiting for the rest of the people to get cast, and your mind, that cast list that they would put up on the wall.
Okay.
And my mind, my soul suckers and my inner critics were like, oh my God, she didn't direct me at all. Am I going to even be in the play? And then the list goes up, and I walked into the green room and somebody said, how did it go? One of the grad students. And I was like, it went well. Like I really want Abigail. And she looked at me and went, yeah, but you look a lot more like a Mary Warren.
Yeah, we know that.
And I even had the courage to say, but that's a much more interesting choice than like, she's evil from the moment that she walks out. Cause I was like pissed that she tried to take away what I wanted in that moment.
And you had power as well in that moment, because you jumped.
Yeah, I was in touch with my power because I had been like letting the fire within me lead while reading and just following, like, I know what this person is. I know what fire is.
Yeah.
And later, both, I did get the part, the cast list went up, my name was there. Many people were shocked that my name was there. They did put me in a wool outfit that had like the cream colored muslin underneath with more of a cutout than the other characters, and gave me more of a shape. And then I realized like, hey, I'm actually not all that overweight. I'm curvy. And they put me in something where I had some curves instead of like just put her in a brown paper sack called this huge t-shirt. That was a huge moment of like, there's this good girl thing. And like, it was like my chance in theater to be like, but I don't want to be Mary Warren. I like gotta let Abigail out. The bad one, except that that is not how the director and I saw it. Like, she was born in the wrong time, a very oppressive time. And then when she found this like power lane to save herself, things go a little crazy, but it wasn't from like this evil, the
Mm-hmm.
female version of like some dude with his mustache.
Mm.
She was a full three-dimensional human being.
Oh my gosh, I love this story. And when I hear that, I'm sensing that's why you are a great actress, because you will have brought a depth to this, to the profession and to the role that you get from, and I kind of envy the quiet types from that suppressed quietness where the volcano is waiting to come out. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
I'm your opposite. I was hyper. Um, I masked with confidence. So just
Mm-hmm.
like you and dear viewers and listeners, what we found out, Lauri and me, is we have a lot in common. It's really spooky,
Mm-hmm.
on the surface at least, but we must be different. So this is really fascinating.
Yeah.
Um, but I am so just like you. I'm very sensitive,
Mm-hmm.
and I discovered that later, that it's like the hedgehog, the hedgehog's belly will only be shown on this one side, but mainly where there's a lot of spikes. And then we curve
Mm-hmm.
ourselves on the ball and don't get too close. My ball is called confidence. So I've developed that skill of confidence and fun and humor and wow, ta-da! I'm the kid in the theater production that everybody notices. You
Mm-hmm.
notice me. I will make sure of that. But it can be a bit over the top, very so theatrical. But they don't really like it in theater that much, turns out, which is annoying because I'm really good at exaggerating. So
Mm-hmm.
from that place, it was always more like tone it down, tone it down. And I'm like, where's my freedom? Where do I really get to go for it? Because I've got this excessive energy that needs to channel. And everyone's like, no, you need to go inside, go in. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. What do you want from me? Just let me play. I've got literally life force in buckets, 10 times as much as most people. So I'm clearly a star. So let me be a star already. And I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't pull it back until I
Mm-hmm.
found this director found me, and he did a really clever thing that I'm going to call outside in acting versus inside out acting. And he just gave me a bunch of props. And he says, here's a bunch of props. Your role is Ilse in Spring of Awakening.
Mm-hmm.
You've got these bunch of props. You're this crazy girl that's an artist, and you're going to, I mean, you're just 13, 14, and you're going to show off to Moritz, the character, about how great you are, with whom you have sex, even though you're so young. The money that you can, because people are giving you money. You're going to put lipstick on your lips. You're going to do your hair. You're going to all this whilst you deliver the monologue. So he
Mm-hmm.
overloaded me with tasks, and I shone because I can
Mm-hmm.
do that, and it's complete chaos whilst going into hyper energy. And so I
Yeah.
did that, and it blew him away because I can
Mm-hmm.
do that. It doesn't take much. And so because I was so busy doing all that, the energy was channeled in a proper way, whereas most other people go like, "Come on, just," and I try to channel my Anne Frank because
Yeah.
I'm a third generation, Auschwitz survivor, so surely I'm Anne Frank, and it's just I wasn't getting the same thing. So
Yeah.
all this to say, we're coming
Yeah.
at things from different ends, but I want to go back to your story because it's fascinating.
Yeah. I'd have to say I love that director. And there is a difference between suppressing and channeling.
Hmm.
For people out there, if you're like, oh my God, some people try to suppress you, control you, tell you there's only one way to do it. Other people help you channel your genius. And that director helped you channel your genius.
Yes, and it was to the extent that I only had one scene in the play, but the poster was me. The
Mm-hmm.
newspaper review, my picture, big paragraph about that scene. It was the central scene of the whole piece. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm grateful and satisfied that I got it out with that scene.
Yeah.
And he really let me go wild. He let me go wild. And I
Yeah.
can go wild. And by wild, I mean, I'm going to go and say more on the unhinged side.
Yeah.
Um,
Untamed,
untamed,
unhinged.
unhinged. So it goes into what people call me crazy a lot. I now
Mm-hmm.
stop them. Because I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
tell me what is crazy about me. Because you'll
Mm-hmm.
find I am not crazy. I battled with this thing. And people, oh, you're so crazy. Like, am I? Turns out, no,
Mm-hmm.
I'm really serene. But
Yeah.
I'm very alive, and that's not something you come across in that way that often. So you think, "Oh, that's crazy. That's just more expressed than we know." But look, is that how is that crazy? It's not dysfunctional. It's
Yeah.
not ungrounded. It's not. No, no. I'm actually. This is life. This is healthy. It takes
Yeah.
a long time to find that. Anyway, I want to go back to your story. We are a good girl. We are wild woman. We're kind of touching on these concepts,
Mm-hmm.
and what I'm hearing is really there is the what is formed, and then there is we become more distinguished, and then there is
Mm-hmm.
what is real. And what I mean by that,
Mm-hmm.
what is real is what is true to you. What is true
Yeah.
to you? Like the acting scene, you got a chance to channel something that needed to come out, and I'm so happy that you had that experience because after that, how did that change Lauri as a person, and how did
Yeah.
it
Ooh,
continue?
yeah, I had a lot more confidence.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that rippled into day-to-day life from like I know I'm born to do this. My email address is one of them is born to act and has been. I'm born to do this. I know I'm good at it. When I listen to my intuition, my gut, what I feel is here, it comes alive. um so I had that, that was like a big breakthrough. And I had that and I went off and I acted. And then there were some other key moments on the journey, many of which happened in acting classes and continued to ripple through life. Um, I did find myself, you know, it was like the confidence was there on stage and the confidence was there in my acting. And it's just continued to get stronger and stronger and stronger until I'm like, yeah, the wild, untamed, intuitive, creating in the moment Lauri is 150% in charge every time I'm doing something that has to do with theater, from directing to acting. And it's still rippling into the other areas of my life. I found myself in my favorite acting studio ever while working in the Silicon Valley. So, in the Silicon Valley, it's the most masked up place, one of the most masked up places in the world. So, I was very known for my jaw tension while I was working there. And it was like the last line of defense. Like my whole body was actually tight, but I was such a sensitive person that like emotions would be there. I just sort of walked around like that. And at one point, when I was leaving one company in particular, somebody said, I always thought you were angry, but now you look so free and so full of joy. Like they would pass me in the hall and think that I was mad at them. And they would say hi, and I wouldn't even realize they were there. Um, Around that point, the like smart version of Lauri and the passionate version of Lauri that would just kind of get very intense, and the porcelain doll quiet version of Lauri, it's like three ways that I could be depending on the circumstance, with a whole lot of the smart pulled together. And I was doing an exercise in an acting class that was an improv exercise, which isn't really the important part. I was on stage all by myself instead of having a partner or three up there. And they were throwing in prompts, and it was not to be funny. It was called stretch work, to like stretch into your full capacity. And I kept like pulling myself back together and putting on what was still left of that, like, I'm fine armor in front of the heart and jaw tension. And Richard said, whatever that is that you're doing, stop doing it. And I said, I'm not that comfortable having everyone's eyes on me. And then he took off his glasses and said, then you've picked a strange set of careers for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Part of you wants this. Part of
Mm-hmm.
you knows you're meant to be here. And it was like he was talking to like the the Lauri who came out as Abigail, the Lauri who was like playing make believe with their friends who
Mhm.
all left. And I was like dancing in my backyard, finishing the story by myself when my mom walked in and opened the garage door. That Lauri was like, yes, I am. I'm I'm meant to do things here. And he held an incredibly safe and sacred space. And I'd been there for 2 years at that point. So I jumped back into the exercise and was like releasing the jaw tension, releasing the stuff in front of my heart, noticing the thoughts of like, but it doesn't make any sense to be completely sobbing when somebody walks in and says, isn't the best ice cream flavor ever? And would just be like, well, you got to yes and it. And be like, I know, I love this ice cream so much. And just like ride this wave and go
Mhm.
with it.
Mhm.
And when that exercise was over, I looked out at all of my classmates and it was like that sensitive being who could always feel what was going on with people and had channeled it into, let me have this kind of like oneness and sense what's going on, and then immediately turn that into like, how do I protect against you getting upset? Was like, oh, I'm in tune with everybody and I can stay in tune with everybody and I can have me and my knowing and my power. And I don't need to like go hide that or suppress it. We can be here together.
Okay.
That was huge.
That is a huge
That,
advanced lesson in being.
yes. Yeah. And yeah. And that was like, they're related. That one wouldn't have
Mhm.
happened if the Abigail moment hadn't happened
I hear
10
that.
years or 12 years earlier or whatever it was.